And all that's really to say that most churches do that just so that you keep giving your money and that the doors don't close. So what do? We sing songs that you like. We structure a service and pattern our events and structure everything in essence to make sure you're happy. That's why you can go to a church that sings a 100-year-old song to a pipe organ. And we've got denominations, and we could name them if we wanted to. And we got denominations that still want the old-time religion. They still want the old way of doing things, just how Grandma did it. The problem is the only body in church is Grandma. Did I say it too quick? Because I meant it. Nothing wrong with that if you want to keep that, but we got to understand that's not the purpose of the church. We've missed it all together if we think it's just about us. You know I love you, that's why I'm telling you this today. The purpose is that we can engage in a world on the outside of the four walls and invite them to come in and have enough influence to the process that when they get here, they don't want to leave. But if they've got to step back in time 50 years and they come in our door, I'd want to run too. Because we're living in an age where we've got entertainment and we've got cultures, we've got arts, we've got movies, we've got internet, we've got all these different things, all these different tools and assets we could use if we just had the wisdom to grab onto them. Or we can exile those things and call them evil and not want to touch it because it may get our hands dirty. Because you know there's pornography on the internet. Why do you think there's pornography on the internet? Because somebody somewhere, probably a Christian, that God spoke to the idea and said, use this as a tool of outreach, said, I ain't getting my hands dirty. I can't touch that stuff. So somebody on the outside took it and ran with it and turned it into a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yes. But just because it's on there doesn't mean that you don't have to fool with it. You don't even need a library anymore. You can Google everything. It amazes me how we want to steer clear of those things because we feel like our hands are getting dirty. Is anybody getting anything? Will you wave at me if you're really getting something? So here we are. Here's the church. The church is powerless to perform. It's irrelevant. It's out of date, but we're happy. Because when we come to church, it ministers to us. Interesting question. And it's quiet in here today. I'm glad you're listening. If the only time I get ministered is when I come to church, what am I doing when I'm out there anyway? This is my issue with everything. And I love you. And I'm not saying I'm always right. If you got a problem, write me a letter. I've got 2 already. It's good. What's happened is our youth ministries, instead of focusing on their industry, their energy, their talent, and their passion towards reaching young people on the outside, they've had to turn everything around and focus on the inside just to try to keep those young people that grew up in the church saved. For one reason and one reason only. Because their parents were more concerned about what they like than what their kids might like. And the problem is that what was okay for your generation, for whatever reason, you feel like that's evil for the next generation. And this is my thing with it. You know, you watch Bewitched, but you got a problem with Harry Potter. I've not read Harry Potter, don't know nothing about it, not endorsing, not telling you to get the book, not telling you to watch it. But why was it okay for you to watch Samantha wiggle her nose and the demonic child Tabitha float her dad across the room, but then it's just evil? We got to boycott the movies because they're showing Harry Potter. Nobody can go to the movies ever. Put the passion of the Christ on the thing, on the film, and on the big screen. We got movies like Fireproof out there, Facing the Giants, different things coming up, and those are small comparisons. And truthfully, the reason most people don't even engage Christian film is because the secular society does it so much better than we do. But I believe there's a generation that's going to flip the script and turn everything around and bring everything in the Christian world back up to par. But listen, you've got to understand that you did it. So why do you want to cuss somebody in the spirit? Because it's really all we do when we're starting to talk bad things about people. All we're really doing is we're cursing them in the spirit world, and we did the same thing growing up, and we don't want our kids to be influenced by society. But you know you were shaking your hips with Elvis Presley, the Bee Gees, AC/DC, whoever it was. You know you knew the song. Everybody in this room probably knows who Aretha Franklin is, Mariah Carey. You probably know who Karen Wheaton is because we're church people through the process. You know who Whitney Houston is, all those different stuff. You were influenced by those people, so why can't your kids somewhat? Because it was okay when you did it, but it's not okay when your kids do it. Why can we not take something that society deems not necessarily spiritual, but has a wholesome message, and if it reaches somebody on the outside? We were going to do a skit to the song Bleeding Blood by Leona Lewis, and we just didn't quite get it together, but a couple people found out about it, and if you don't know the song, it's okay. But for those of you that do know it, the interesting thing is you wouldn't believe the people I had coming against me, even talking about me. There was actually a restaurant down the road, somebody said there was a whole group of people just bashing you in the church because you talked about doing a secular song in church to try to minister to people. Well, if you're in church, this is the thing. Church people usually are the only problem, the people that have problems with it. But I've found that the most popular ringtone on the phone, if every time they hear that thing, they can see a picture of Christ bleeding love for them, it means much more than Leona Lewis shaking her hips on TV. Yes. Now, they don't minister to you, it's okay. But don't ever forget and think that it's all about you, because there is a generation coming behind you. That's what inheritance is. Inheritance is passing the baton. It's saying the older generation, man, you had it and you've got something to leave. And it validates the younger generation by saying, you know what? We view you as important enough and valuable to give you what we've worked and kept for our whole life. That's why inheritance is important. Well, we got a generation that was never valued, was never past nothing but generational curses and problems and religious mindsets and false tendencies and mythology, to the point that no wonder they don't want to come to church. And then we want to get mad as parents and cuss God and get mad and say, God, I thought you'd be faithful, that if I trained up my child in the way that they should go, that when they grow old, they won't depart from it. Because statistics says that when they turn 18 and go to college, only 8% of them will ever set foot in a church again until they reach a midlife crisis around age 45. Could it be because somehow through the process you were more concerned about what you liked and not what they liked, that you created an environment that they so despised and so hated that they couldn't wait to run from the church? But what if we could create an environment that we could coexist, that we could become salt and light, where the world that we send them to in school to teach, and we want them to learn about art, we want them to learn about music, but then we want them to come inside and feel like every art is evil and every other music, if it doesn't have Jesus in it, is evil through the process, and we send them to school for years and years and years to develop a mindset, then we want to change it overnight and say it's all evil. No wonder they're so confused. Can I just get some help just for a second? Can you bless your sweating preacher just for a second? Here we are. We're supposed to be salt and light. But how can we be salt and light if we're so afraid of getting dirty out there? Big question, isn't it? How's your preacher going to do this in another 15 minutes and wrap this up for you today? Somebody pray for him. He's on page 3 and he's got 9. Hallelujah. I don't know about the church that you grew up at. Can I just talk from some experience for a second? Then I'll get back in the Bible. It's kind of sad to me because I'm a church kid. I grew up in church. That's all really I've ever known. Got some amazing stories I could tell you, probably much like you could tell me. I don't really know what it's like to be out in the world. I never had that option because I had an interceding mother that anytime I even thought about it, she'd come knocking on my door saying, what are you doing? I'm thankful for it now because it saved me all kinds of hardship, but I don't know what it's like to go to a party. I don't know what it's like to drink, don't know what it's like to smoke anything, don't know what it's like to be on drugs, never experienced that. I'm not trying to say I'm perfect. If anything, it's almost put me at a disadvantage, if you'll listen to me, because my life is spent ministering to those people. You talking about trying to relate to them, it's got to be God. I think that's why God put me in doing what I'm doing in the first place, because it takes God to relate to them. I can't relate from some experience. I said all that for a nutshell, is that most of the preachers I grew up aspiring to be like, when you see them coming down the mall, if they were unholy enough to go to the mall, they usually were 15 years behind the style curve. And every time they got up to minister, they liked to brag on what they didn't know what was going on. You know, they'd say things like, what's that ball game that you go to? You know, it's got that brown-looking ball, and it's got the white things on it, and they kick it, and they throw it, and they run with it. What's that? It's a football, fool. How can you live in the United States of America and not know what a football? Somebody needs to pull your license immediately. You know, and then they would preach on things, and you could tell they knew nothing about it because they mispronounced everything. Well, all y'all up there on that intro net. I see up in them churches playing them sympathizers. It's synthesizer. It's different than a sympathizer. It's not the intronet. And